Hey there! So good to be back. I hope you had another great week. In today's video, I will be showing you how to bake a pumpkin pie. One of my favorite seasons is still ongoing, which means that pumpkin is basically an essential element of the majority of my meals. I will be showing you how to bake a pumpkin pie from the Hokkaido pumpkin, and this pie is simple yet very delicious. So let's get into it! Is there anything better in the autumn than baking a pumpkin pie with icing on top? I can hardly find anything tastier that would resemble the beauty of this colorful season. While this recipe might look a bit complicated at the beginning, it is pretty simple to make. The pie is also a great companion for long evenings and fits fantastic with a cup of tea. Let's begin! Before I proceed to any actual preparations of the ingredients, I preheat the oven to 180 degrees Celsius and let it do its own thing while I focus on the batter itself. The first thing I focus on is the pumpkin puree. Hokkaido pumpkin is an essential part of the pie, so I start with it, and I cut it in half. This one did not resist as much as the pumpkin in my creamy roasted Hokkaido pumpkin soup, which you can view by clicking on the small banner in the top right corner. That one is also delicious and suits the season well. Now, once the pumpkin is cut in half, I remove the seeds and clean the inside with a spoon. The pumpkin is now clean, so I remove the small parts on the top and bottom of it. I am almost at the end of the initial preparation of the pumpkin as I cover both halves with aluminum foil and ensure they adhere to the form correctly. Now, I move them one by one into the baking tray and I am ready to say goodbye to them for 50 minutes. Bye, pumpkins! I leave them in the oven without opening the door for 50 minutes. After time has passed, I remove the aluminum foil and bake them for another 5 to 7 minutes until they have crispy brownish skin on the top. Hey, be careful here, they are hot. Next, I put them aside until they cool off as I focus on the batter. The first thing I do is I spray the bundt cake pan with coconut oil and I sprinkle the flour. You can also use butter, sunflower oil and an all-purpose flour if you do not have my preference as an option. And just like that, the whole form is white and covered in flour. Now, I just make sure the flour has reached every corner of the pan. As the next step, I sift the flour, baking soda and pumpkin pie spice, which consists of cinnamon, nutmeg, ginger, allspice and cloves. You can check my other video to see how to create your own mixture at home by clicking on the small banner in the upper right corner. As the last step, I add a bit of salt into the mix and I put the bowl with it aside. Now, I focus on the wet ingredients step by step. First, I crack the eggs into a separate bowl, beat them into a foamy form and add sugar or sugar substitute. In the beginning, I used a balloon whisk and later moved to an electric hand mixer. I have used a zero-calorie substitute, which I use in the majority of my baking recipes. You can also use the regular sugar here, just add 100 grams of it. I continue by creaming the butter and the shortening, both have the same proportional ratio. You can do it by using a balloon whisk or a wooden spoon. Please start at the slowest speed of your chosen tool and slowly increase it to create a fluffy mixture. I decided to use a wooden spoon at first and finished the step by using a balloon whisk. Great! Now that I have all the wet ingredients prepared in a separate bowl, it is time to mix them. I slowly add the light and fluffy butter foam to the beaten eggs with sugar. One piece of advice here, mix it rather slowly instead of using the electric mixer at high speed. I give it a whisk and ensure they are combined correctly. Now, it is time to add the final ingredient to the mixture. Once the pumpkin halves have cooled off, I scrape the baked pumpkin meat from its halves and move it into a food processor. I blend it until it's smooth and soft. This should take, at most, a couple of minutes to have the puree ready. Now, I add the pumpkin puree to the buttery eggs mixture and mix it to combine all the ingredients. We are reaching the end of the preparation phase of the pumpkin pie as I steadily add the dry ingredients to the wet ones. I add them in smaller amounts rather than mixing everything at once to ensure all the parts are correctly combined. As the last step, also an optional, I add 375 grams of cottage cheese to soften the batter and a bit to improve the protein ratio in the whole cake. I also add chopped nuts to the cake. This is also an optional thing to do so. Next, I pour the batter into the prepared bundt cake pan and bake it for around 65 to 70 minutes. I check the oven around 60 minutes into the baking to see how the batter is. The time might vary a bit based on your oven and also on the height of your bundt cake pan. While the cake is in the oven, I prepare the icing to decorate it and add flavor. First, I beat the cottage cheese and light Philadelphia cream cheese in a small bowl. Next, I add 20 grams of butter and I beat it again. Finally, as one of the last steps, I add 400 grams of icing sugar and mix everything. In the end, I add a bit of vanilla extract to the icing and I give it a final whisk. Once the pumpkin pie is baked, I remove it from the oven and while still hot, I turn it upside down and remove the bundt cake pan. I let it cool and start decorating it with the prepared icing. The cake has to be warm, however not super hot. And that's it! The pumpkin pie is ready. Enjoy! Thank you for watching the video and let me know in the comment section if you liked the recipe, if you liked pie and if you tried it at your home. I will see you next week.